How do you survive the moment you realize you've been nothing more than a stepping stone to the people you trusted most? That was the question echoing in my head as I replayed the video for the 6th time. My boss, my mentor for over 2 decades, stood in a crowd of laughter, whiskey in hand, calling me a worthless dumbass like it was some kind of party trick. And they all laughed, every single one of them. The woman I trained, the man whose mistakes I'd quietly fixed for years. No one defended me. No one even flinched. It was like watching my entire career dissolve in real time. And the worst part? I hadn't even seen it coming. I wasn't just betrayed. I was erased, while still breathing, still giving everything I had to a place that decided I didn't matter. This isn't just a story. It's the moment my life split in two. The part where I believed in loyalty, and the part where I learned the price of silence. And now I'm going to tell you what happened next. If you've ever been quietly broken, if your pain was ignored, this story is for you. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe and share this with someone who's still fighting their own quiet battles. My name is Marissa Lane. I'm 49 years old, and for over 2 decades, I gave everything I had to a company that saw me as disposable. This isn't just a story, it's what happens when silence turns into strategy. The message arrived at 11:42 p.m. on a Sunday night, just as I was setting my alarm for the next morning. An anonymous text from a number I didn't recognize. No greeting, no explanation, just a video attachment and the words, "Thought you should see this." I almost didn't open it. Almost. The grainy video showed our company retreat from 3 days ago, a gathering I'd missed because I was finalizing the Henderson proposal that Robert, my boss of 22 years, had deemed absolutely critical. The camera focused on a small group gathered near the resort's fire pit. There was Robert Langston, holding court as usual, whiskey glass tilting dangerously in his hand as he laughed. "Marissa's a deadweight," he said, his voice slightly slurred, but unmistakable. "A worthless dumbass who's been coasting for years. Next month she's out. She won't even see it coming." The laughter that followed felt like physical blows. Chad from accounting, Tina from HR, even Jessica, who I'd personally mentored for 3 years. No one defended me. Some awkwardly laughed along, others just looked away. I played it again and again, 5 times total, until Robert's words had burned themselves into my brain. 22 years. Over half my life dedicated to Vanguard Gray Consulting. I was 49 years old and had sacrificed everything for this company. I'd missed my nephew's graduation to handle a crisis for the Zimmer account. I'd worked through pneumonia during the Bellingham merger. My doctor had warned me about my blood pressure just last month, but I'd brushed it aside, too busy with quarter-end reports. I set my phone down on the kitchen counter, the screen still illuminated with a frozen image of Robert's smirking face. My hands should have been shaking. I should have been crying. Instead, I felt a strange, cold clarity washing over me. I walked to the home office I'd set up during the pandemic and never dismantled, despite the company's return-to-office mandate. I opened my laptop and pulled out the leather-bound notebook I'd carried for the past 15 years. Then I started writing. By 3 a.m., I had a plan, not just for survival, but for justice. The morning alarm buzzed at 5:30 a.m. I hadn't slept, but strangely, I'd never felt more awake. I showered, applied my makeup with particular care, and chose my best suit, the charcoal gray Armani I reserved for client presentations. As I drove to the office, Minneapolis was just beginning to stir. The skyline glowed pink in the early morning light, the same buildings I'd watched grow year after year from my office window. In the rearview mirror, I caught my reflection and barely recognized myself. The woman looking back wasn't broken or defeated. She was dangerous. "You won't even see it coming," Robert had said. Neither would he. Have you ever had that moment when betrayal strips away everything you thought you knew about your life? When the scales fall from your eyes and you finally see the truth that was there all along? Monday morning. I sailed through the office doors at precisely 7:45 a.m., same as I had for the past 2 decades. Friendly nod to security. Small talk with the receptionist about her daughter's dance recital. Everything normal. Everything routine. Except nothing was. Morning, Marissa, Robert called cheerfully from his office as I walked past. Got a minute? Want to hear about the retreat? I smiled, actually smiled, and stepped into his doorway. Sure, Robert. How was it? Phenomenal team building. You missed out. He leaned back in his ergonomic chair, the one that cost more than my first car. Though that Henderson proposal looking good? On track, I replied, noting how his eyes never quite met mine. Had they ever? Just need to polish the financials today. That's my girl, he said with that patronizing half smile I'd somehow never noticed before. Always reliable. My girl. Like I was a golden retriever who'd fetch the newspaper. Anything else? I asked, maintaining my pleasant expression. That's all. Keep up the good work. I smiled again and walked to my office, closing the door behind me. Then I got to work, not on the Henderson proposal, but on my real tasks for the day. First, I pulled every critical file I'd ever created for the company and saved them to an encrypted drive. Reports, templates, client communication protocols, everything I'd developed over the years that kept our operations running smoothly. Robert had always taken credit for my systems. Now I had proof they were mine. Next, I started combing through emails, thousands of them. I created a folder of every instance where Robert had either taken credit for my work or thrown me under the bus for his mistakes. There were dozens. At 11:30 a.m., I called Simon Harrington, our longest-standing client. We'd worked together for 15 years, and he trusted me implicitly. Simon, how about lunch this week? Just us, no agenda. Been too long since we caught up properly. For you, Marissa, always time. Thursday work? I spent the afternoon in a blur of activity, smiling through a strategy meeting where Robert announced his new client onboarding process, the one I'd spent 6 months developing. I nodded appreciatively. I took notes. I played the part. After everyone left, I stayed late, as usual. But this time, I wasn't working on company projects. I was searching, and what I found made my blood run cold. There, in the company's HR database that I technically shouldn't have had access to, but did, because I'd helped design the system, a new employee profile being prepared. Amanda Langston, Robert's niece, fresh out of college with a mediocre GPA and zero relevant experience. The position? Senior Operations Strategist, my exact title. Start date, 4 weeks from now. I dug deeper. Financial reports with inconsistencies, department metrics being subtly altered week by week, making my team's performance appear to decline while Robert's direct reports showed improvement. The entire narrative was being carefully constructed. Marissa's team underperforming. Marissa becoming irrelevant. Perfect justification for my removal. As I switched off my office light at 8:20 p.m., I stopped by Robert's office. He was still there, as I knew he would be. Heading out, Robert. Just wanted to let you know the Henderson proposal is looking even better than expected. I found some additional cost savings. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Always the overachiever. Don't work too hard, Marissa. I never do anything more than exactly what's needed, I replied, meaning every word. That night, I made my first call to Carter Blackwell at Harrow & West Consulting, our biggest competitor. We'd met at industry conferences over the years, and he'd tried to recruit me more than once. Carter, it's Marissa Lane. About that conversation we never finished last year. I think I'm finally ready to have it. Do you know what it feels like to realize you've been living in a house of mirrors, where nothing was ever as it seemed? Would you have the courage to shatter the glass? For the next 2 weeks, I lived a double life. By day, I was Marissa Lane, loyal senior operations strategist working diligently on reports and proposals, attending meetings with helpful suggestions, mentoring junior staff. I brought donuts on Wednesdays. I joined the office birthday celebrations. I stayed late and arrived early. By night, I was someone else entirely, someone methodical, patient, and utterly merciless. Each evening, I built my case piece by piece. I uncovered that Robert had created a shell department called Strategic Innovations that existed only on paper. I was listed as its supervisor, though I'd never heard of it. Following the money trail, I discovered $2 million in client funds had been discreetly funneled through this fictional department, then reallocated to projects that had supposedly failed but never actually existed. I documented everything meticulously, saving evidence in multiple secure locations. My lunch with Simon Harrington was enlightening. "Between us, Marissa," he said, lowering his voice over his half-finished salmon, "I've been concerned about some of the reports coming from Vanguard lately. Numbers don't add up the way they used to when you were handling everything directly." I nodded sympathetically. "Management changes. You know how it goes." "Well, I don't like it. The only reason we've stayed is you." "I'm touched, Simon. Truly. Just being honest. $20 million of business deserves honesty, don't you think?" I smiled. I couldn't agree more. By the end of the second week, I had made contact with 7 of our top 10 clients. Not to complain or seek sympathy, that would have been unprofessional. Just to check in and maintain relationships. Each conversation revealed the same thing. Their loyalty was to me, not to Vanguard Gray. Meanwhile, my conversations with Carter at Harrow and West had evolved from exploratory to specific. I was careful never to use company devices or email. We met twice at coffee shops far from the office. By our second meeting, he was making concrete offers. "We'd bring you in as a partner, Marissa, not just an employee. You've earned it." "I'm flattered," I replied, "but I need to think about timing." "Of course, just say the word." On day 17, I met with Patricia Winters, an attorney specializing in corporate malfeasance and wrongful termination. I laid out everything I had found. "This is extensive," she said, reviewing my documentation. "You've been very thorough." "I've had 22 years to learn how things work." "With this evidence, we could pursue several avenues, but I have to ask, what's your goal here? Money, reinstatement?" I considered the question carefully. "Justice." She smiled slightly. "That's refreshingly straightforward. Let's talk strategy." At the office, the signs were becoming clearer. Robert began excluding me from key meetings. Projects were rerouted. My team members were being reassigned one by one. The most painful moment came when Jessica, my former mentee, avoided eye contact in the break room. I cornered her by the coffee machine. "Everything okay, Jess?" Her eyes darted around nervously. "Fine. Just busy with the Collins account." "The Collins account that was under my supervision until yesterday?" She flushed. "Robert said you were overloaded." "Did he?" I stirred my coffee slowly. "And at the retreat? What did Robert say then?" The color drained from her face. "Marissa, It's fine, Jessica. Really." I touched her arm gently. "We all make choices we have to live with." I walked away, leaving her staring after me. That afternoon, I finalized my agreement with Harrow and West. Partner status, equity, complete autonomy over client relationships. Everything Robert had promised over the years, but never delivered. As I drove home that evening, a strange calm settled over me. The Minneapolis skyline glowed in the sunset, buildings ablaze with golden light. For 2 decades, I'd looked at those buildings and seen my professional home. Now they were just structures of glass and steel, housing people who had never truly valued me. The next day, Robert called an all-hands meeting to announce a strategic reorganization. I sat quietly, watching him unveil a new organizational chart. My department had been absorbed into his, my role nowhere to be found. After the meeting, he stopped me in the hallway. "Marissa, let's grab coffee tomorrow to discuss the transition." "Of course," I replied with a pleasant smile. "Looking forward to it." That night, I made my final preparations. I sent secure document packages to the board members with delivery timed for Monday morning. I confirmed arrangements with 5 key clients. I finalized details with my attorney. I slept soundly for the first time in weeks. Have you ever felt the calm that comes from knowing exactly how a story will end, even as others think they're still writing it? Friday arrived with a perfect spring morning. I dressed with particular care. My navy suit, pearl earrings, hair pulled back in a sleek chignon. I looked powerful, professional, and utterly composed. As expected, when I arrived at the office, there was an email from Tina in HR asking me to come to conference room B at 3:30 p.m. No subject line, no explanation needed. I spent the day tying up loose ends, removing personal items discreetly from my office, and preparing the Henderson proposal for handoff. At 2:45 p.m., I stepped out for a coffee run and mailed my company keycard to Patricia Winters as we had arranged. At precisely 3:30 p.m., I walked into conference room B with my head high. Robert sat there with Tina from HR, both wearing carefully neutral expressions. "Please sit down, Marissa," Tina said, gesturing to the chair across from them. I remained standing. "I think I'll stand, thank you." Robert cleared his throat. "Marissa, as you know, we've been implementing strategic changes across the organization." "Please spare me the corporate euphemisms, Robert," I interrupted quietly. "We both know why I'm here." His jaw tightened. "Fine. Due to restructuring, your position has been eliminated. We're offering a generous severance package." He slid a folder across the table. 6 months' salary, continued health benefits for 3 months, and an excellent recommendation letter. I didn't touch the folder. "Is this decision final?" Robert and Tina exchanged glances. "Yes," Robert said firmly, "it is." I smiled. "Perfect." Their confusion was palpable as I reached into my bag and removed an envelope of my own. "This is my formal acknowledgement of termination, along with notification that I will not be signing any non-disparagement agreements or additional confidentiality clauses beyond those in my original contract." I placed it on the table. My attorney advised against it. "Attorney?" Tina asked, alarm crossing her face. "Just a precaution." I turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Oh, and Robert, you were right about one thing. I didn't see it coming, for years, but eventually I did." I walked out of the conference room, through the office where I'd spent half my life, and out the front doors without looking back. In my car, I took out my personal phone and sent a single, pre-composed email to Harold Shaw, CEO of Meridian Enterprises, our $12 million client. "Harold, after careful consideration, I must inform you that as of today, I am no longer with Vanguard Gray Consulting. I've valued our professional relationship tremendously over the years. I'm available at my personal contact information below, should you wish to discuss your company's consulting needs further." I drove home in a state of strange exhilaration, a feeling I hadn't experienced in years, perhaps decades. Freedom tinged with righteous fire. The weekend passed in a blur. By Sunday evening, I'd received calls from 3 major clients, including Harold, all expressing shock at my departure and concern about their ongoing projects. "I can't discuss the details of my separation from Vanguard," I told each of them carefully. "But I can tell you I'm exploring new opportunities where client relationships and ethical business practices are prioritized." Monday morning dawned bright and clear. I slept in until 7 a.m., a luxury I hadn't afforded myself in years, then made French press coffee and sat on my balcony watching the city come alive. My phone began ringing at 8:32 a.m. First, Carter from Harrow and West. "It's happening exactly as you predicted," he said, excitement evident in his voice. "Harold Shaw from Meridian called me personally this morning. Said they're terminating their contract with Vanguard effective immediately and want to know if you're coming aboard." "Perfect timing," I replied. "Let's make it official today." Next came a text from Jessica. "OMG, Marissa. Chaos here. Robert's lost it. Board members arrived unannounced. Closed-door meetings all morning. What's happening?" I didn't respond. At 10:15 a.m., Robert called. I watched his name flash on my screen, feeling nothing but cool detachment. After 6 rings, it went to voicemail. He called again at 11:30 and again at 1:45. At 3 p.m., I finally answered. "Hello, Robert." "Marissa." His voice was tight, controlled panic evident in every syllable. "We need to talk, immediately." "We're talking now." "Not over the phone. This is..." He lowered his voice. "Meridian has pulled their contract. Westfield and Princeton Financial, too. The board received some concerning documentation this morning about strategic innovations." "How unfortunate," I replied evenly. What did you do?" The words came out as a hiss. "I did nothing, Robert. I simply stopped covering for what you did." Silence stretched between us. "We need to fix this," he finally said. "Come back. Same position, 10% raise, full benefits reinstated." "You called me a worthless dumbass in front of our colleagues," I said, my voice finally betraying emotion. "Why would you need someone worthless now?" Another long pause. "Marissa, please. Goodbye, Robert." I hung up and immediately powered off my phone. Then I opened my laptop and signed the partnership agreement with Harrow and West. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to reclaim your power after years of giving it away? To watch someone's entire world collapse as yours finally begins? By Wednesday, Vanguard Gray was in free fall. The company's stock had dropped 18% in 2 days. My attorney informed me that the board had ordered a comprehensive internal audit. 3 more clients had terminated their contracts, not just with Robert's department, but with the company entirely. I formally began at Harrow and West as a strategic partner. My office overlooked the same Minneapolis skyline, just from a different angle. My assistant brought in fresh flowers with a card signed by the entire executive team. Welcome to the family. I spent my first days reaching out to former clients, carefully observing legal boundaries while making it clear that I could now offer them the same expertise with better resources and more transparent practices. By Friday, Carter brought news that made me pause mid-sip of my morning coffee. The board called for Robert's resignation yesterday. It's not public yet, but it will be by market close today. I set down my cup carefully. That was fast. The evidence was overwhelming, Marissa. The Shell department, the misappropriated funds, the falsified metrics, all with your name attached, but his fingerprints all over it. Carter shook his head. He was setting you up to take the fall for everything if it ever came to light. I nodded slowly. The confirmation should have felt vindicating, but instead I felt a hollow ache. 22 years of my life devoted to a man who had not only disrespected me, but had been actively undermining me. "Are you okay?" Carter asked, studying my face. "I will be," I replied. "I'm just processing." That evening, I received another text from Jessica. Robert cleaned out his office today. Security escorted him out. CFO locked in with auditors all day. Legal team in emergency meetings. Everyone's asking, "What happened? Was it you?" I typed back simply, "Actions have consequences." On Saturday morning, I took myself to breakfast at my favorite cafe, something I'd rarely had time for in my previous life. As I savored a perfectly prepared Eggs Benedict, my phone lit up with an unfamiliar number. The text read, "It's Robert. New phone. We need to talk. Please." I stared at it for a long moment, then tucked my phone away without responding. I ordered another mimosa and watched families stroll by on the sidewalk outside, enjoying the spring morning. By Monday, the business community was buzzing with the news of Robert's departure and the ongoing investigation at Vanguard Gray. I received dozens of messages from former colleagues, some apologetic, some seeking information, others obviously hoping to follow me to Harrow and West. To most, I responded with brief professional acknowledgments. To those who had laughed along with Robert in that video, I sent nothing at all. The week progressed with a rhythm entirely different from my previous life. I left the office at reasonable hours. I joined a yoga class. I had dinner with friends I'd neglected for years. My doctor noted that my blood pressure had already improved. "Whatever changes you've made," she said, "keep making them." On Thursday afternoon, my assistant announced an unexpected visitor. "There's a Mr. Langston here to see you. No appointment." I closed my eyes briefly, then straightened my shoulders. "Send him in." Robert looked different, his confident swagger gone, replaced by an uncertain shuffle. His typically immaculate appearance slightly disheveled, tie loosened, hair not quite perfectly styled. "Marissa," he said, remaining awkwardly by the door of my new, sunlit office. "Robert," I didn't invite him to sit. "What can I do for you?" "I wanted to—" He cleared his throat. "To apologize." "For?" His eyes flashed with brief annoyance at being made to say it. "For what I said about you. For how things ended." Things didn't end, Robert. You fired me after systematically undermining me and planning to make me the scapegoat for your financial mismanagement. He had the grace to look ashamed. I was under tremendous pressure. The board, the shareholders. Don't, I cut him off. Don't try to justify it. He nodded, then gestured vaguely around my new office. This place seems nice. It is. An uncomfortable silence stretched between us. I suppose you know the board has requested a criminal investigation into the strategic innovations accounts, he finally said. I heard. My attorney says, well, it doesn't look good. He ran a hand through his hair. I might be facing charges. I said nothing, just watched him squirm. Look, Marissa, we worked together for a long time. I know I made mistakes, but we had some good years too. I thought maybe you could put in a word. Tell them I wasn't the only one who knew about those accounts. The audacity stunned me into momentary silence. Are you asking me to lie to federal investigators to protect you? Not lie, just contextualize. I stood up slowly. Robert, I think you should leave. Marissa, please. My reputation, my career, it's all gone. I can't even get an interview. I thought maybe there might be something here. Some entry-level position, anything. You don't need a job, Robert, I said quietly. You need to sit with what you've done. You need to face the consequences of your choices, just like I had to face the consequences of mine, trusting you for far too long. He stared at me, desperation turning to anger. You did this to me. No, I shook my head. You did this to yourself. I simply stopped protecting you from your own actions. I walked to the door and opened it. Goodbye, Robert. He left without another word, shoulders slumped in defeat. I closed the door and leaned against it, suddenly exhausted. The confrontation hadn't brought the satisfaction I'd expected. Instead, I felt free, as if the last chain tethering me to my past had finally broken. I walked to the window and looked out at the city I'd called home for decades. Same buildings, different perspective. Same life, completely transformed. Have you ever realized that vengeance isn't what heals you, but rather the moment you stop letting someone else's opinion define your worth? Weeks passed, then months. As spring turned to summer, my new life at Harrow and West took shape. I built a team, carefully selected, properly valued, and genuinely collaborative. We secured contracts with 15 former Vanguard Gray clients, including all of the major accounts I had previously managed. The criminal investigation into Robert continued. I testified twice, providing documentation and answering questions with complete honesty. My attorney assured me I had no legal exposure. I had been manipulated and used, my signature forged on key documents. One warm July evening, Carter invited me to dinner to celebrate our most successful quarter to date. To new beginnings, he said, raising his glass. And hard-earned wisdom, I added. After dinner, walking along the river, he asked the question I'd been waiting for. Why didn't you ever say anything? All those years? I considered my answer carefully. I believed in loyalty, in proving my worth through sacrifice, in the promise that if I just worked hard enough, contributed enough, gave enough, I would eventually be valued. That's not loyalty, Carter said quietly. That's exploitation. I know that now. I watched the lights dance on the water. But there's something else, something I'm still coming to terms with. What's that? I was comfortable. The admission felt both painful and liberating. Comfortable with being undervalued. Comfortable with the familiar disrespect. Comfortable with diminishing myself to make room for Robert's ego. It was what I knew. Carter nodded slowly. And now? Now I'm learning a new kind of comfort. The comfort of standing tall, of speaking up, of believing I deserve good things. We walked in companionable silence for a while. The board has asked me to consider the CEO position, I said finally. Carter stopped walking. At Harrow and West? That's incredible, Marissa. It is, I smiled. 5 months ago, I was being escorted out of a building. Now I'm being asked to lead one. You'll say yes, of course. I'm considering it carefully, on my terms, with my vision. I resumed walking. The irony isn't lost on me. Robert tried to erase me from the industry, and instead, he catapulted me to its highest level. Poetic justice, Carter said. Indeed. The following week, I received news that Robert had accepted a plea deal, financial penalties and probation in exchange for cooperation with the broader investigation into Vanguard Gray's practices. That same day, Jessica reached out asking to meet. We sat at a quiet corner table in a coffee shop far from the business district. I've wanted to apologize, she said, fidgeting with her cup, for the retreat, for not speaking up. Why didn't you? I asked, more curious than angry. She looked down. Fear, cowardice, not wanting to be his next target. When she met my eyes again, tears shimmered. I learned everything I know from you, Marissa, and when it counted, I failed completely. You didn't fail me, Jessica. You failed yourself. She nodded miserably. But here's the thing about failure, I continued. It's an incredible teacher if you're willing to learn from it. I am, she whispered. I handed her my business card. Send me your resume. No promises, but we have an opening on my team. Her eyes widened. After what I did, why would you? Because everyone deserves a second chance, and because I believe you'll never make the same mistake again. As I watched her leave, I realized how much I had changed. 6 months ago, I would have written her off completely, nursing the hurt of her betrayal. Now I understood that extending compassion wasn't weakness. It was its own kind of strength. The next morning, I accepted the CEO position at Harrow & West. Have you ever noticed that true victory isn't about destroying your enemies, but becoming exactly the person they never believed you could be? 1 year after that fateful Sunday night when I received the anonymous video, my life had transformed beyond recognition. Under my leadership, Harrow & West had grown by 37%. We'd moved to larger offices with my name on the building directory. I'd hired selectively from Vanguard Gray, not out of vengeance, but because I knew exactly which undervalued talents deserved rescue. Jessica had joined us 3 months ago and was proving herself daily, working with the hungry determination of someone given an unexpected second chance. On a personal level, I'd found balance I never knew was possible. I worked hard, but maintained boundaries. I took actual vacations. I reconnected with old friends and made new ones. I started dating again, cautiously, selectively, but with an openness I hadn't felt in decades. My therapist, yes, I finally had one, helped me understand that what happened with Robert hadn't been a sudden betrayal, but the inevitable culmination of patterns established over years. Patterns I had allowed, patterns I would never allow again. The Minneapolis business community recognized me with their annual Leadership Excellence Award. Ironically, the same award Robert had won 3 years prior. As I stood at the podium accepting it, I scanned the audience and spotted a familiar face in the back row. Robert looked older, diminished. Our eyes met briefly before he looked away. I didn't mention him in my speech. He no longer deserved space in my narrative. Instead, I spoke about resilience, about reinvention, about the courage to walk away from what no longer serves you, about building organizations where people thrive rather than survive. After the ceremony, several people asked if I was planning to write a book about my experience. I laughed it off, but the idea took hold. Perhaps my story could help others recognize the subtle erosion of their worth before they lost 22 years to it. That evening, as I drove home, my phone rang through my car speakers. An unknown number. Marissa Lane, I answered. Ms. Lane, this is Thomas Reeves from the Wall Street Journal. The voice was professionally warm. I'm working on a feature about women transforming corporate leadership. Your name keeps coming up. Would you be open to an interview? A year ago, I would have deferred, deflected, diminished. Robert would be better for this, I would have said. I'm just behind the scenes. I'd be delighted, I replied instead. My assistant can find time in my schedule next week. As I pulled into my driveway, the sunset painted the sky in spectacular shades of purple and gold. I sat for a moment, savoring the beauty and the quiet pride in how far I'd come. Inside, I kicked off my heels, poured a glass of wine, and walked to my home office. On the wall hung a small framed note card with words I'd written to myself the night I received that video. They underestimated you. That was their mistake. I touched it gently, then opened my laptop to begin outlining my book. The working title, A Worthless Dumbass, How I Turned Underestimation into My Greatest Advantage. My phone buzzed with a text from my date for the following evening. Looking forward to tomorrow. You choose the restaurant. You have excellent taste. I smiled. Indeed, I did. In restaurants, in colleagues, in the life I was building. A life defined by my terms, measured by my standards, and rich with possibilities I was only beginning to explore. Outside my window, the Minneapolis skyline glittered against the darkening sky. The same buildings I'd watched for decades, but now they held different meaning. Not symbols of what contained me, but of what awaited me. I opened a new document and began to type my story, not for others, but for myself, to honor how far I'd come, to celebrate the woman who finally said enough, to acknowledge the strength that had always been there, waiting to be claimed. In the quiet of my home, I whispered the words I'd been waiting 22 years to say, I win. But the greatest victory wasn't over Robert or Vanguard Gray. It was over the voice inside that had kept me small for so long, the voice that said I didn't deserve more, the voice that confused loyalty with self-sacrifice. That voice was silent now. In its place, a new certainty had grown, steady, unshakable, and finally free. Have you ever discovered that your greatest power was inside you all along, just waiting for you to believe it was real? Maybe you've been there too, sitting in the ruins of something you gave your whole heart to. If this story felt a little too real, it's because it was, and maybe because it's yours too. Sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't loud, it's success, peace, freedom. And if you're still fighting your own quiet war, don't do it alone. Subscribe, leave a comment, and let me know you're here. Because in the next video, I'll tell you what happened when he came back, asking for help. Yes, he came back. Let's finish this story together.